Hello, I'm Bledsoe. I've been a Master Gardener since 1994. I grew up in southeast Iowa on a farm where we grew a lot of vegetables and had many flower gardens. My first remembrance of hydrangeas was when we had the great big snowball hydrangeas and we would play under it and play hide and seek. Today what I'd like to share with you is the tools that you're going to use to prune, understanding your tag, and actually doing some pruning. Let's start with the plant tag. This is a very important thing that I encourage you to keep in a notebook perhaps, but also to make a plant tag to put in front of or mark with your hydrangea once you've selected and planted it. This will provide you with the fact that it's called hydrangea, which is basically known as its genus, the family name, like our last name. The middle Paniculata tells you that it's what type it's going to be, and that we consider like your middle name. And then the Diamond Rouge would be your common name, like going by the name of Jean. The other important thing on this to look at is its sun requirements. With hydrangeas, most of them do not like the heavy afternoon, very hot sun. It will tell you the size that it will grow into, what its watering needs are, but very important to hydrangeas is the zone. This one in particular is a zone 3. You'll see most of them sold around here as either zone 3, 4, or 5. Those all will survive in our areas. The higher the number, the more you may have to winter mulch it and protect it. The lower the number means that it's hardier to cold temperatures. So that's a very important thing to shop for when you're thinking about the hydrangea, where it's going to be placed, how big it's going to be, and what its requirements are. From here, let's take a look at the tools that I suggest, that I use. This is a good, sharp bypass pruner that has a lock on it. And so that is what you will use most often. Sometimes for the bigger branches, you may want this bypass pruner. Most of us are familiar with the very big long handles. I found this one and like it a lot because I got the leverage I need on it. In some instances where you may have a very overgrown, or perhaps you may have a big limb that has died back, you're going to want to use this little hand pruner. Be very careful of these tools, however, because they are sharp. Make sure they're clean. You may want to, after your use, wipe them off with alcohol to keep them from spreading or having any disease. And we're going to talk about why you want to prune. Pruning hydrangeas, you can shape them into the size that you want. You want to make sure you've taken out any winter kill, branches that cross over, because if they rub, that's an open sore, and that can invite infections from diseases. The other thing is airflow, and just to keep it trimmed and healthy. So let's talk about old wood is defined as last year's growth on the stems that are there. So you have new growth coming out of last year's stems. The other type is what they call new wood. And on new wood, it comes up out of the ground, but you may want to remember to look at the stems from last year, because there may be some growth close to the ground on those sticks. If there is, you want to cut just ahead of that leaf node so that that will also bloom out. And from here, we're going to take an actual look at some of the hydrangeas, and we're going to talk about cutting them and trimming them. One we're going to look at and prune is an Arborescence Hydrangea. And this blooms on new wood, which means, again, that it comes up out of the ground. However, I always leave last year's growth in case there's some new buds close to the ground that may come out and be part of this year's growth and flowering. But in this case, as you can see, we have some old sticks here and nothing has happened. So I go in and cut these close to the ground at a 45-degree angle, and there's new growth coming out. Nothing is crossing, nothing is unhealthy, and so basically we're just trimming out any existing branches from last year's growth that more or less just helps to the look of it so that you don't have dead sticks sticking up out of it. And then it's finished and you have now done your pruning. Again, this one is an arborescence, new growth from up out of the ground, but there may be some new growth at the very bottom of this stick. And if you look closely here, you can see what looks like may have been a leaf coming out, but did not survive the cold weather, and so it just didn't go any further. But when you're pruning, you want to prune above that growth at an angle. So that's really the pruning technique you're going to apply to all hydrangeas. The next hydrangea that we're going to talk about pruning is a Paniculata. And in this case, it's known as, its first name is Limelight. So when we're talking among our friends, we often just say, oh, I have a limelight. Is it tree form or is it in a shrub form? And looking at the tag that came with this, this says in its full mature growth, it's going to be 10 feet wide, 10 feet tall. Now, this one I have not allowed to do that, so I have pruned it back. But there's some areas in here we want to talk about pruning, such as this stalk right here. And if you look at it, you'll see it's old wood from last year, but it has some new growth on it. And so this is one of those hydrangeas that grows on old wood. And in pruning this, we're going to go down just above this leaf emergence. And again, we're going to cut at a 45-degree angle. Now, that cleans it up and encourages that growth from there. So we can look a little bit more, see if there's any others. This has been pruned earlier and shaped up into what we want it to grow into. The thing also to remember when you're pruning this type of a hydrangea is if you cut back too severely, it can affect this year's flower growth. Not the year following, it'll be back to where it should be. But that's one of the reasons we encourage you to prune these yearly, probably taking it down to a third by a third or a half to get your size control. So that is the information you'll need for pruning and shaping up your Paniculata hydrangeas. Same theory of looking for crossovers, looking for dead wood, but mostly shaping and removing any old and spent flowers when you're ready to start pruning. We're going to be looking at a crucifolia here, which is also known commonly as an oak leaf. So named by the shape of its beautiful leaves. The other thing that is very interesting about oak leaves that I truly love is their winter interest, as they have exfoliating bark. So once the leaves have dropped in the winter, you have that interest in the bark. Again, this is the type of plant that requires very little pruning, and what you're looking for again is if you were to need to shape it, which I haven't pruned these for shape in their existence, but there is some dieback on old dead wood from last year, but there's new growth coming out below it. And so again, the pruning habit is to go in there with your pruners and gently cut that off at a 45-degree angle. And so it's more of an issue of cleaning it up and making sure that, and look it over for any dead wood, of which there's a couple pieces back here, and that can be cleaned up and make sure that there aren't any big branches that have died back that you would need a bigger pruners to do. I really like the Oakleaf Hydrangeas because they have seasonal interest. They have exfoliating bark for the winter, they have fall color in the leaves, and their blossoms are Paniculata, which means they're shaped like a triangle. Very pretty blossoms, a carefree plant that has a lot of interest, so one I really like and enjoy throughout the seasons. The Dubuque County Master Gardeners established the Hydrangea Bed in 2019 at the Dubuque Arboretum. We currently have 37 plants over there. We add new ones each year so that the public can see new introductions and also learn the existing climate requirements, height, and blooms of the ones that we have. Additionally, we have just installed an information box which we will rotate information out of for the various things people like to know about hydrangeas. We hope that you'll come and enjoy our hydrangea garden throughout the season. This has been a Master Gardener moment from the Dubuque County Master Gardeners. Today we have talked about different types of hydrangeas, what to look for when you're purchasing them, and how to prune them. Additionally, we hope that you will visit the Dubuque Arboretum and our big hydrangea garden that we established over there, as you can continue to learn more about the habits and growth and requirements of hydrangeas. Just remember, hydrangeas are quite forgiving, and so if you cut a little low one year, they will come back.